Welcome to Schelstraete On Tour, Future of Equine Sports, the podcast where we explore how key developments are shaping the future of international equine sports. Each episode features in-depth conversations with leading voices in the sport across multiple continents. I'm your host today, Piotr Wawrzyniak, attorney and partner at Schelstraete Equine Law. I'm together with Luc Schelstraete, and we are thrilled to welcome our first guest today, Mr. Mikael Rentsch, legal director of the FEI, member of the senior leadership of the FEI, and also member of the ICAS. Welcome, Mikael, and thank you for accepting our invitation for this first podcast.
Thank you very much, and I'm delighted to be one of the first guests for that podcast series. So thanks a lot. I'm very delighted to welcome you at FEI headquarters, and thank you for coming all the way.
Yes, of course, we are all aware, Mikael, that within a short period of time, the president of the FEI will be leaving the FEI probably. We've seen some movements over the last year. Mr. Ingmar de Vos becoming also member of the IOC in a special function, and also member of the Association of the Summer Olympic Games. We've been also seeing that the FEI headquarters is operating very independently. It's a well-oiled machine, one could say. So the new president, do you think that the role of the president is going to be evolving more into a ceremonial function, or with the more power within the Secretary General and the FEI headquarters?
So basically, the current president, Mikael de Vos, as part of his presidential program, he wanted to make clarity in advance of the election. So the election will take place at the end of the year. So this year, the General Assembly will vote for the president. But the main question was, do we want a working president as he was, or do we want more representation president? So the board had created a presidential succession working group that looked at different models and looked at what should be. They were not seeking candidates, but more seeking as to roles and responsibilities. And then it was presented to the General Assembly actually for a vote, and they actually voted at the last General Assembly in Hong Kong in November. They voted for the roles and responsibilities of what they want for the future president, which is basically wanted continuity, wanted the same type of leadership, working presidents that would be living here in Lausanne headquarters, working nice office here in the FEI headquarters, as you could see this morning. So basically, same type of relationship with the Secretary General, working on the key projects, remaining very relevant to the Olympic Games, sustainability, growth of the sport, and so on. So that role description has been approved with some preferred skills and experience and some mandatory requirements. So that has been decided. And now the question is, who will be the candidates? How many candidates? What is the timeline? So we do not have a date for the General Assembly yet. So usually it's at the end of the year, normally November or December. And based on that, they will work backwards as to when the candidacy should be submitted. Typically in the past, it was around May or June. So that would be the official deadline for candidates to candidacies to be submitted. And each candidate needs the support of the National Federation. So the National Federation has to sign off a candidate that would be then voted at the General Assembly.
It's the National Federation in the country that the candidate lives.
Exactly.
Yes.
Well, it's a country of nationality, so a candidate may
live
citizenship, so they can lose. But that would be.
Do you have a favorite candidate already waiting?
Well, obviously, it's a situation for the headquarters that is not that, let's say, easy. Obviously, we want continuity. We had a great relationship with our current president, so we hope that the new president will be as open-minded, with great experience. I will not have a say. I don't vote, so I will not comment on any candidacies that will be put forward. We hear rumors at the moment that some people are interested, but obviously they're only rumors. And the official period has not started. So, politics, how it goes. Anything can happen. So we are all waiting for the board. So the board the FEI board will first agree as to the timeline and the steps
Yes.
and the rules and then what needs to be done. And then we will reassess at that time.
But a question is, so does the president need to be a member of a candidate? Does he need to be a member of a national federation, or just he needs to get the support from them?
No, you need to have the support of a national federation.
Okay.
So obviously that's a little bit also the understanding if that president will then need to move to Lausanne, obviously he needs to make decision as to their previous roles and look at conflict of interest potentially or not. So
Well, actually, so the perfect candidate lives in Lausanne.
or has to move to Lausanne. So Mr. De Vos was actually living in Belgium when he first started. He started as Secretary General, so he moved to Lausanne as Secretary General. And then when Her Royal Highness Princess Haya decided not to put forward her candidacy as president and thought that Ingmar De Vos would be a good candidate, then he became president, a working president for the first time. But yes, that's the goal. And that's what we wanted to give clarity and to have the General Assembly last year to approve, to make sure that that's what they want. They want a working president with presence here so that we interacting with the Secretary General and have the same type of relationship. And I think it's key for the organization.
And after being selected, what is the duration of the first period?
So the election is for a term of 4 years, and then there is a maximum of 3 terms. 20 years. And that's why our current president can no longer put forward his candidacy, because he would have served the just 20 years.
Yes. Okay, it's very interesting.
But listening to this profile, I mean, and knowing your experience within the FEI, of course, the question could be, would you fancy the job of the FEI president?
Oh, I will not put forward my case. That's no.
Sometimes when being asked, you cannot refuse.
Yeah, it's we always hear that, from the candidates. I didn't want to put, but I've been asked and so on. But nobody contacted me and to put, because yes, but I do not.
Yes, to discuss a bit about your position within the FEI. You're a lawyer.
Yes.
You have never practiced as a lawyer like we do, but you have been working as a lawyer in, what did you say, an accountant firm?
Yeah, I started, so after my law degree, because I'm not that young anymore, there was not really sports law programs at the time, so I did my law degrees in the University of Lausanne and Zurich. I did a partnership with Zurich. And then I was always having the goal to work for a sports federation, so I said, how can I achieve that? So I started to work first for a big firm in Geneva called Deloitte as a consultant. Tax and consulting services, and I did that for 2 years. And then I decided to do a master's degree in the US. So I went to Duke University and did an LLM, and that's where I really tried to do it dedicated to sports law, contracts, and sports matters.
Yes.
And then when I came back from my trip to the US after 1 year, then I started to look for a job. Sports field, and I ended up at the FEI.
Yeah, you talk about sports, but did you have already a warm feeling for the equine sport?
I had no real understanding and no true interest into equestrian sport. I'm a sports addict in general, so I follow most of the sports I knew, of course, mainly jumping, a bit of dressage, and so on. But when I got the phone call from, it was a headhunter who called me and said, there is an open position for the FEI. I said, what? The FEI, what is that? And so you could see my level of knowledge of the FEI, which was also about 20 years ago. So it was not the FEI that we are today. So, and then I applied to the position, and I believe a little bit in destiny. So, because when I did my master's degree in the US, I could choose between a few universities. And then I decided to choose Duke for various reasons. Sports, because there is a big sports university. The program was great, top 10 university. And then the person with whom I did the interview at the FEI was actually half American and half Swiss, and I had studied at Duke University. So I said, that's probably a sign.
Yes.
To get that job.
Yes. We at Schelstraete, we meet the FEI in general, but also you in person, when it comes to the legislation, but also in the case law, the disputes, the disciplinary cases. We think it's more interesting to have a look backwards at 2025, the year after the Olympic year, because the big question mark for us is, how is business developing? I mean, how is sports developing? The number of people that compete, is it growing? Does it depend on the discipline? And also the continents. Personally, I have the feeling that show jumping is growing everywhere in the world, by far United States and the Middle East. But dressage is not growing. It's stabilizing or perhaps getting less. When I look at the number of competitors registered at the FEI, it's not getting bigger. There is a little bit of a concern there, being in the dressage enthusiastic. So please, perhaps can you give some info on figures? What has been happening the last year?
I think it's an interesting question as to how the sport is developing and growing, and what do you mean by growing? Is it in terms of number of athletes? Is it in terms of number of horses? Is it in terms of number of events, media attention, and so on? So I looked, and I need to look at my paper I looked at some data, because for dressage, for example, it's true that the number of registered athletes is pretty stable. No real growth, a little bit less registered in 2025 than 2024, than the year before. But there are 5,200 registered athletes. Still a growth compared to 2015, which was 4,900. So you have a growth of about 6%. But then, interestingly, the number of events in 2025, there were 880 events in 2025. And 10 years ago, there were 500.
Yeah.
So that's a growth of 76%. So you could see that there is a potential. There is a good number of events where the riders can go and choose to compete. So there is that growth. But then, of course, if you put in perspective, there are about 5,000 horses in dressage that are registered, but in jumping, it's 53,000.
Yes.
So they've tested
10,000
jumping riders, and of course,
yes,
this is also bigger. And that's where it is. How can we grow? But you may know, or you may not know, but the FEI and dressage world is looking at that, and they formed a strategic working group in dressage specifically to look at how we can improve, let's say, and grow the sports. Do we need to look at competition formats? Do we need to look at training? How to make sure that the younger generation comes to dressage, because we can see that there are not that many that go to dressage anymore compared to the past. They go maybe more to jumping, and maybe there is also, nowadays everything goes fast. The young generation, they want everything immediately. And in jumping, you can grow and go to the next level quite, not, I wouldn't say easily, and I'm not a jumping rider, but you can really make your path in probably less time that it will take in dressage. And dressage, as you know, how it takes to there's a proper dressage to compete at the proper level, high level. It takes years, and we want, and we have the time, money, education, trainers that will teach you to go to that level.
Do you try to say that dressage needs more skills and mileage?
Not
of the competitor,
but we also notice, and that's where also when discussing with the riders, they also feel that there is a little bit less knowledge from the grooms on horsemanship and what needs to be done in order to properly train the horse and to make the horse improve in their career and so on. So overall, that's also for the FEI, and we have various groups and commission that have been established. One is also to establish that what should be the ethical training methods. How do you train a horse, and what is acceptable, what is not? Because we see that some of the things out there are not acceptable. Who says it's not acceptable, against what standards? And that's what we need to create collectively. What do we want? How do we want the horse to be taught, and how do you make the path to the top level? Ultimately, the goal is to go to the top level, but we need to start with the grassroots, and we need to have that. So it's a big topic. Youth, it's very important, and we are also going to have a session at the Sports Forum in a few weeks' time, or in the end of March, where we want to understand, because many riders as well, they start horse riding, and when they reach a certain age, they stop.
Yes. Why is that?
Because studies, girlfriend, boyfriend, other interests. Is it too difficult to travel with your horses? Too expensive? We want to understand.
You talk about show jumping and dressage, or only two?
Or discipline.
Yeah.
Or discipline, because we see that trend, and we need to make sure that we have that new generation coming in.
Yeah.
So we need to engage with them. We need to understand. But of course, the goal is to have them go to the top level. But the top level is only it's the toys.
Yeah, but that's basic problem. I'm in the middle of the dressage area. I come from show jumping background, but we switched into dressage 20 years ago. But what we do see, it's also happening in show jumping, but more in dressage. People want to start today, compete tomorrow, win the day after. I mean, it should not be like that. People need to enjoy sports. They need to enjoy the training, the selection of the horse. It has to fit the rider. So, and then the horse is 4, 5, 6 years old. And then you start riding, training, and then you will move from each class to the other class. But per today, we see that many parents obviously can afford to buy the ready-to-go-on horse. And that makes very disappointing for the young people, because they don't learn how to develop the horse. So it's my idea that, especially in dressage, those people that are really motivated to have a life, a living in that sport, to do buy young horses. Because what can you say if you're 18 and you buy the best horse, number 1 ranked, and you can do Grand Prix? That doesn't say anything about your skills. I mean, okay, in a year time. So I think that separate from the methods, people need to learn that the way to the competition is at least also as important as the competition itself. We are in dressage too focused on that 5-6 minute in the arena. And we think that the horse is not okay if you're not 75. We are too focused on the top sport. The way to the top is far more challenging and interesting, I would say. It's a little bit worrying, because I'm sure that when you look at the international competitors, you see it at pony level less. You see it at children. That's okay. But junior, less. The classes are getting smaller. You have, of course, that's also because of the fact that you have more and more competitions at the same time. You could say there is no date clash because this show is in Hungary and the other show is in Berlin. No. The parents have no problem. They travel. So there are many possibilities to compete, but I love the idea that a certain percentage needs to be reached before you do the international show, and that it's already there at the Dutch Federation in Germany. But I think we have to reconsider whether it's really serious enough to reach out for this percentage. So I'm a little bit worried about the dressage, because how to train the horses are being sold easily. People cannot really buy success because you still have to do it in the arena. But after all, it's only 10% compared of the show jumping. And the show jumping as a whole is growing because many, many new people come in. In dressage, I have my doubts. So, but I'm happy to learn that compared to 10 years ago, it's still going into the right direction. Yes. But we have to be careful with what we are doing at the moment. That's my idea. So how come that the show jumping is growing that fast, so quick?
I think in show jumping, we can see that, of course, there is a lot of interest, and there is first the pool of horses that can compete at the high level is now big enough. When you see the number of 5-star events that are every year, and it's enormous. Now you have like 2, 3, or 4 or 5-star events over the same weekend.
Yes.
10 years ago was not the case. So you have that, the horsepower is there. As I said, there are more than 50,000 horses that are there. I think what helps them as well, obviously, for the organizers, they have sponsors. Sponsors are interested into that. Horse owners are also willing to spend quite a significant amount of money to have the riders and the horses trace around the world. There is no limitation there. I think the competition format helps compared to dressage, because you don't need to have that much of technical expertise to enjoy show jumping. You can go to show jumping competition, you understand quite quickly, you hit the pole, it goes down, 4-point penalties, and that's it. In dressage, if you don't have that expertise as to what the movement should be, it's difficult to really compare what is a good performance compared to another performance. And also the requirements are difficult in dressage. And I remember many years ago, I was at the World Championships in the US, and there was a Spanish rider doing what I thought was an amazing performance. US crowd clapping, USA, wow, that was amazing. So I went to some colleagues and said, oh, wow, that was amazing, amazing performance. And I said, it was nice, but that was not dressage. There were so many mistakes and things. So,
yes.
And the general public could not see that. They could still enjoy the performance, but it was not the true dressage. So I think there as well, in jumping, it's easier. There is sponsor. We're also lucky to have the FEI. We have Longin as a title sponsor that helps also being sustainable. We have launched a new series about Longin League of Nations, which is exciting.
Yes.
Rio Cana with the final in Barcelona. It's really good. So I think it helps the sports to be there. There are also other competing series that are there. So other organizers that are with.
But the audience is still there. I remember clearly that the Olympic Games of Paris, the dressage was sold out the quickest.
Yes, that is correct. But I think and at every Olympics, the first discipline, or actually one of the first sports to be sold out across all the sports, is dressage, because the fan base is very, very dedicated, very committed.
Yes.
But that pool of fan is limited because they are all experts in the fields in dressage and in non-dressage. But how do you expand that to
commercial success?
Commercial success.
But
And the FEI also, just to give you an example, we have a title sponsor for jumping for the World Cup with Longin. We do not have a title sponsor for the FEI World Cup dressage. And we have been trying for the past...
What money is involved to be a title sponsor for the world?
Well, that's probably it's several millions of euros, obviously, and you want to be able to contribute towards the prize money. You want to contribute to the organizer for the setting event. So it's a huge investment. And also the commercial landscape has changed a lot. Traditional sponsorship is over. Now they want figures, they want fun
result.
Engagement. So you need to be creative.
Yes.
And also in dressage, of course, you have a performance that lasts 7 to 8 minutes per rider, and you have 50 riders doing the same movements over 2 days. How do you want to be visible on television? How do you want to engage with the fan base and so on? That's where jumping has an edge, like in 2 hours, 1 hour and a half, you have one competition form.
Yes. Okay. I agree, but that's not completely correct, your assessment there, because in show jumping, also many people only look at the jump off. I mean, it's a fact that when you look at Aachen, there are many people there watching show jump because the arena is bigger. But I was in Aachen in dressage. It was really fantastic. The number of people. I was in a herding. It was fantastic. But I think that the format could change a bit in dressage. And what...
Say 2 hours, because I know that some people in the dressage world would disagree, but I think...
but that's the right that we can discuss.
And what they did many years ago, the freestyle to music, which is amazing format, very entertaining. In the beginning, many people were against. What way of doing that? And then it proves to be so successful.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
I think we need to be open to...
Yeah, but it's not... We don't need to invent the wheel because it's there. Jan Tops created the team challenge.
Yeah.
It was very, very good for show jumping. It was very good for the international development, for everyone involved in the industry, from the breeder up to the trainer, the rider, and so on. That needs no further comment. But bringing in a team idea could change the format. Teams, national teams, or sponsored teams. Why couldn't we consider this? And also, the prize money. When we compete, we have the same expensive lorry, we have the same expensive staff, we have the same expensive horses. And what do we get when we are placed or even win a Grand Prix 3-star, 4-star? We get a few hundred or a few thousand. In show jumping, it's crazy. And I'm so happy for the show jumpers and the owners and all these stakeholders, but it should be more attractive when we have teams. I think we should really consider this. And everybody that would say, okay, we don't need to change this, they accept the fact that in the end, it's not sports anymore, but it's more like a lifestyle. And it should be sport because it is athletes and horses developing, competing, showing their ability. And it's there.
Perhaps it's an idea to fit one dressage class in the FEI League of Nations. I mean, the format is there, so it could be perhaps easily done, I guess.
And we do have, and we see, for example, for the World Cup finals, we often have organizers that bid to have the two disciplines, and you can see the synergies and you can see it benefits all. So I think that's great, and I mean, it happens. But I fully agree on the format, and you see many other sports that to change the format. Is it the same sport? It's different, but
sport
changes, yeah. And as you say, if you are grassroots and you want to evolve, maybe if somehow you have competition format that are easier to reach and steps in between, then you will encourage them to be wanting to be a dressage athlete and to compete at that level.
Mikael, you just explained the significant growth of events over the last 10 years. From the FEI perspectives, what would be the regions that are growing the fastest in this context? Is Europe still at the top, or is it going down, as some people say in the world?
Yeah, it as well. And I guess you're interested in probably in dressage and jumping to make the comparison. In dressage, 59% of the athletes are European, 70% of the horses are European, and 63% of the events are in Europe. So you can clearly see the leading sport, it's still in Europe and by far.
Yes.
And then in jumping, it's even more. It's 71% of the athletes are European, 81% of the horses are European, and 72% are of the events are in Europe. So still the big majority are in Europe, but there are countries that are developing very well. And when you see the United States, it's moving fast, it's growing really a lot, and you see great initiatives. You see that you have events in Florida, you have in winter, many people from November to March. You have now Ocala with the World Equestrian Center that they have events. And you even see European athletes that traditionally they would compete in the World Cup season indoor in Europe. Now they go to nice Wellington, nice outdoor, and they compete there. They compete in their environment, but they also have their students. So they act as trainers, and then that is when they help building the next generation as well. And in dressage, there are some that do that, but in dressage as well here, it's growing also in the US, but you don't have that many Europeans that would go to the US at the moment. But that's for sure. And if I look also a few years ago, the FEI also, thanks to Longin, they wanted to invest in the US to grow the sport. And the World Cup North American League was traditionally 3-star level. Now they're all 5-star. That was always the goal. We need to promote and
to do so.
Also investing. We do time buys on television to be visible on television. We really invest a lot of money, but it proves to be efficient because now it's 5-star levels, very exciting. They all compete. So that's clearly one of the big market. And also there is this pool of athletes that are dedicated, and also they also have the financial means. We should not hide that. There are lots of wealthy American people that can afford.
Would you say that equine sports is a luxury sport?
The reality is, and I'm sure you know, that's to buy a horse, a competitive horse. Now the prices have gone to roofs
when you buy them older.
Yeah,
but the prices of the young horses are going down.
Yeah.
So again, it's about that.
Again, because you need to, if you buy a very young horse, you need to make that horse to the top level. It takes years. So people would rather buy already a Grand Prix horse.
I know.
More expensive instead of going to the route, train and.
But there's a risk in that situation, as I told. But about the other continents, China and Middle East, how are they developing?
So Middle East is also growing a lot, and there are lots of 5-star events and events there in Qatar, in Saudi Arabia. Now they are also setting up events. We also had the FEI World Cup finals there, both in dressage and jumping in Riyadh. Of course, Dubai, Abu Dhabi, they still organize many
Yes.
as when they have interest in mainly in jumping there, I have to say. But they start also in dressage. Endurance, of course, traditionally is also very big in that continent, so that's clear. And China is booming. China is clearly, you see many people that want to ride, they want to invest in horses. There are amazing equestrian centers that are being set up. There is now the China League and so on. So there are lots of events, and you can really see the population now is really getting middle class, and there is people, and they want to be involved in equestrian.
So another topic that we would like to discuss with you, you already mentioned this when we discussed to change the format. You were mentioning, yes, the people don't want to change. It's difficult for people to change. That's a hurdle in life, you could say. But sometimes you need to do this. And the question is, the way at the FEI decisions are being made, changes are being prepared, what is still a big question mark for me as a lawyer also. We have the system at the FEI, one nation, one vote. I made a calculation because I also interested in figures, and I looked at the world ranking, and then I see that about we have 150, 154 national federation.
Yeah, 130 something.
Yes. So when I look at the world ranking, then I can see that most of the nationalities that are competing and are mentioned in the ranking are referring to countries with 1 or 2 competitors, sometimes 3. So that's more than 50% of the competitors in the ranking in dressage are having no colleagues. So that also means that if you look at the total countries in the ranking in dressage, it's 39. That far more than 50% of these people at the ranking are from countries that have no serious dressage tradition. I'm happy to learn that it will change. But only China has only 1 or 2 riders in dressage. But still, when we go to the assembly, we have 154, 53 votes. My question is always, how can people vote and come to decisions on topics that they're not involved in? Because it's 10-50% of the countries that do compete at highest level that have an interest in dressage. In show jumping, it's different. But I'm not an official representative of the dressage community, but we do fear that decisions can be made without proper consultation. But on the other hand, it's good that when the FEI would issue a change of the competitions or a change of classes, that we can do that without everybody's consent. That's not really ritual, I think. But basically, when it comes to topics like horse welfare, changing of methods, double bridle or not, all these difficult, very traditional topics, we in dressage feel that they, and then they point to Switzerland, can decide about us, about what we have built all these decades. Wouldn't you think it a better idea that we do have a change in the way we vote on change, that we are not outnumbered? Because basically, Germany, Holland, all these typical, also United States, we can be easily outnumbered because we feel we are a minority, and that is a big concern. What is your opinion about that?
No, I hear the concern. It has been actually a topic of discussion for many years. Actually, since I joined the FEI, I have the same comments from some national federation that they feel like it's not a fair system because some countries have only one event a year or a few riders that go to the Olympics when they do that. But of course, it's the FEI system, one national federation, one vote. Some other international federations have different systems. Some have weighted votes depending on the number of registered athletes, number of events, and so on. Obviously, the FEI could change that system. So in order to do that, you need to change the statutes. To change the statutes, you need
them to go to the assembly.
I need a two-third majority. But I think where, to your point as to maybe they vote on something that they do not have the knowledge or expertise, the vote in the end, it's the final stage. You need to look really what all the work that has been done before. And before, let's take dressage. Any decision in dressage, we will discuss with the IDRC, International Dressage Riders Club. We will engage with them, say, what is your opinion on this topic? What do you want to do that? We do the same with the Trainers Club. So we have the Dressage Technical Committee. They come if there are changes to the dressage rules. The first body that approves or not or recommends the changes is the Dressage Committee. It belongs in a way to them. So they will say, we want as dressage, want to make that change. And ultimately, it's up to a vote. But if you do the proper work and proper justification as to what that change needs to be made and why and the rationale and so on, in the end, most of the time, the National Federation and the Assembly, they accept the vote. Of course, there are some topics, and of course, some national federations say, for the Olympic format and things should be only the countries that participate at the Olympic Games. But then it's a closed circuit. Is it more fair that it's always the same people voting and then we exclude the one that would never be able to reach the Olympics based on the decision they take? So we need to balance that. The former president, Her Royal Highness Princess Aya, was clear that one nation, one vote was what she wanted for the FEI. Our current president, Mr. DeVos, was the same. Now, the new president, maybe it would be
very interesting.
But I know that some regional federation or confederation have that weighted vote, like EEF. They have approved that, I think, 2 years ago, that they have that two-tier system. So maybe we should ask them, how is it working? How the national federation have that system? So
I would agree with that. I would really agree with that. And I would encourage this because we are a little bit worried because I understand what you say. It's also about the morality of the FEI. You do want, as the FEI, to give all participants the comfort that they are entitled to because you are there for all these participants. I know that, but technically, everything can be decided. That's a little bit worrying, but it's about communication.
We just talked about dressage, but of course it also applies to endurance, which is not an Olympic discipline, but the same concerns are being expressed basically by the people who are
the General Assembly voted things that the endurance community was not fully in favor, and happy at some point, and then it's also sometimes you need to work on that. But based on the decisions years ago, you can see that now endurance it's a much better position, much safer, great sport.
Yes,
and also took on board. So okay, how do we improve? How do we make measures so that we can more control on future?
Do you, as the FEI, observe that also a number of disciplinary cases is going up because of the increasing number of events? So there is like a pure statistical connection between the violations and the...
And I wish we could do the math so we would be able to plan better, but we are obviously, we are there in the FEI headquarters, and then we may have suddenly more cases or less cases. Like last year we had less cases than in the past, and our FEI tribunal had to deal with less cases. I think we have less litigation, I would say, but also because I think the current systems allow for more flexibility, and the athletes can accept the consequences without fighting legally, but still benefiting the reduction of the sanction. We have settlement agreements and so on, which we are very familiar altogether. I think we did a few in the past. So, and sometimes, it's not necessarily about the number of disciplinary cases that make it difficult, but one case can just blow and lots of media attention or lots of lawyers involved and experts, and then it really carries, but there is no real correlation as to a number of more events, called more cases. Obviously, we do a lot of anti-doping tests, but I think as well, many athletes are more professional in a way and they understand better the rules of Adidas. So they take measures that they try to avoid contamination. We also have good system if there is true contamination, whether you can reduce the sanction or no sanction as well. So I think the system has proven over the years that there are ways to, let's say, not fight legally, but to find the right solution based on that. So,
yes. What worries me a bit is when we talk about these doping cases, is the fact that we have seen this at the Olympics, that it's not always the rider to blame. It's the team or the team players or the veterinarian. And but it's still the person responsible in show jumping or eventing in dressage is the rider. It's our belief that also trainers or veterinarians should be more involved in sanctioning what they do with the management or what the riders does with the management. What do you think about that? Is that also the belief of the FEI?
It's a very challenging question, and also you may be aware that we have now out of competition testing as well. And we have the rules that have been approved, and when we discuss that, say, okay, who is responsible if a horse tests positive out of competition? Let's say you are an athlete, you are here, you are today in Lausanne doing this nice podcast at the FEI headquarters. Your horse is in the Netherlands, and you are the rider. The FEI goes and tests your horse. How can you control that the horse is negative? It's challenging. So we decided the system is what it is. We said in endurance, the registered trainer is the person responsible because that's how it works for that discipline. The trainer has always been responsible out of competition, remains the person responsible. In all the other discipline, we only focus on the consequences on the horse. So if the horse tests positive out of competition, the horse will be suspended for 2 months flat. That's the only consequence.
Yes.
So unless we can prove that somebody doped the horse, and then go against. So we are trying to find ways. For in competition, we haven't found a better system that the rider being the person responsible. They can, of course, reduce the responsibility based on all the steps and measures they've taken, and they can go down to no sanction. But I know the hurdle is sometimes difficult. Each your trainer or your veterinarian has injected your horse, you may face a suspension. Is it fair? You can argue that, but I think the system works quite good now. And I think what we didn't feel comfortable at some point was all these cases of contamination where we had to suspend the athletes, where we knew they had no control, like in synephrine cases when the substance grows in grass in Mexico, in South Africa. It's like you feel it's unfair to suspend, and then you type the name of the athlete on Google, and then they will appear as doping or whatever. So now with the new systems, then we can avoid that. So I think that's good for the community, and also probably a relief from the athletes, because it has to be tough for the athletes to know that the horse can be tested anytime.
The athletes, I can tell you, Mr. Rentsch, that the athletes are very uncomfortable with all the doping risks that they are facing, because you can have guards to all the international shows, but everybody walks in and out, and it's okay. So this is a big worry. Juridically, we are way back where we would like to be there as a competitor. We can ask an okay for cameras, but okay, this is not as it should be. But how many cases, not cases, but how many doping tests are there annually?
We do about, I don't have data, it's like 4,500 tests a year. So that's quite significant. But so we are trying to also change a little bit the way we are doing the testing plan, because it's not all about numbers. And we see that as well with the experience from other bodies. WADA, World Anti-Doping Agency for Human Anti-Doping. You need to use intelligence, you need to test, you need to look at what information, just to randomly test everyone. Yes, you will catch a few, but you will catch a non-cheater, but detonation and so on. But if you have information, and we do have more and more intelligence testing, so we would hear information from either somebody that wanted to buy a horse, and then they heard that the horse had been injected, so then they give the tip to the FEI, so we can target this, and that's where we are leading. We want to be more efficient.
Competitors that do international shows have to be selected by the national federations or the coaches, so they get definite entry, yes or no. So it's for several national federations and not for all. I remember, if correct, that just recently the Irish Federation already commenced its. These federations ask quite serious money for each entrance at the show. If you have, let's say, you go to the Schelstraete On Tour, you have 6 horses, and then you have to pay all the time for each horse, each competition. But between the national federations, there are huge differences. Wouldn't you think this responsibility of the FEI to make this equal? Because we talk about fairness, we talk about quality farms, equal sport, etc. Because it annually for business with, let's say, 10 horses that do competition, it differs 10,000s. What is your opinion on that?
No, I think if you have the solution, I would welcome a solution. No, but it's true, and it's correct that also you have like the FEI fees that apply.
Yeah.
And everything is done. Our system is that everything is done through the National Federation. And also sometimes we hear riders complaining that the FEI fee is too expensive. While when we looked at it, but what they are paying is not the FEI fees.
Yeah.
There is the administration fee, let's call it that way, from the National Federation. It's true that there is big discrepancies between the countries. Our system is each national federation, it has its own jurisdiction, and we don't interfere with that. But of course, we're trying to say if the FEI charge X number of euros or dollars, you should be fair to the athlete or to the horse owner, or so that you don't increase. But of course, there is an administration, they need to work, they need to invest on that, and safety tools and so on. But sometimes you feel like to double the price and to do things like that, it feels unfair. But at the moment, the FEI does not interfere.
You don't have the legal capacity to do that.
We don't have the legal means to force the National Federation to stop that practice. But it's true that it's not fair that if you are French athletes, have the price that...
And the Irish or the Dutch,
service.
I agree.
The same, for the entry fees for the horses, we had big discussion in jumping because in Europe, there is a maximum amount of entry fee that you pay for a horse. It should be, 500, 600.
Plus.
It's still bigger. In the US, it's a different model. So you can pay $2,000 $3,000 per horse per event. And I say, okay, why is there a different system in the US compared to Europe? Shouldn't we have like a more global? And we actually did surveys with the riders, with the organizer, and they say, no, it's different business model.
Yeah.
So in the US, if you change the entry fees, then you would have much less events, and then it's no good for the sport. So we had to accept that there are different fees being charged at different rate.
Yeah, okay, but
reality.
Yes, you can choose between luxury and basics. I mean, this is when you fly, you can make these options. But basically, I think that everyone that wants to compete and has the ability and the correct horse is able to do it. You don't need to go to that show altogether. But there's a big difference, and you can say that the horse shows that offer more luxury in the end, they win. And people want to pay for that because many traders say, you don't go to the international competition, so you will have a holiday. Especially 5-star riders, because normally everything is being paid for.
Discussing this, Mikael, is there any kind of an idea within the FEI to develop some kind of a foundation for young riders or for somebody that needs the financial support to go all the way to the top in the sport? Because this is also what you frequently hear, that people even who are very talented, they can't, nationally they can do it, but to go abroad and to compete in, going from the hurdles, this, that. Not only from, I'm not talking about the FEI, but the whole concept also within the European Union of, validating the health certificates, going over the border. It's making all very expensive for people to compete.
No, I think it's a great idea, initiatives. In the end, bottom line, it will cost money.
Yeah.
We do have solidarity departments, solidarity projects. So we do have projects where we help in developing countries, help them to set up athletes and so on. We had very successful vaulting athletes from Mauritius that competed at the World Cup final and so on. So there are stories,
Yes.
Of course, we need a bigger scale, and we need to work with the community. There are other initiatives like International Jumping Riders Club. They have the Young Rider Academy, where they help the young generation to understand what it takes to grow and to train, help them and to subsidize them. So I think we need to do that, and we need to handle it. Collectively, I think we have of course, the FEI, in the end, we are the international federation. So we kind of come at a later stage. We need to make sure that the pool of athletes is already there from the national federation. Why do they do that? Great initiatives in the Netherlands, great initiatives in France. Can we replicate that to other national federation and things and run from them and say, this worked, this doesn't work, we tried, no, we failed, we need to tweak. So I think there we need to really use the best practices, but...
but it's very difficult. It's very, 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 very difficult. There is just a recent publication in Belgium saying, this is very interesting, I think, that more than 50% of the businesses have no business model. And there, it comes to a financial risk of these people, because what about taxes? What about many tax authorities don't accept the deducting of VAT anymore if there is no business? It's the problem is bigger than you would suggest at the first instance. But it's also like this, that everybody that does top sport has to sell a horse in the end.
Yeah.
There are not so many competitors that just buy and buy and buy and buy and never sell. So you cannot imagine that when you are active as a top sport that you have to sell the product that you created. But it's happening, and that's very uncomfortable. But that's the problem that we face. But in show jumping, the top 20 are all dealers. I mean, they buy and sell, they develop, and that's good because the demand is there. And dressage, it's more difficult because the numbers are much smaller. But I can say that the last 3 years, delivery costs, stabling, people wages, it doubled. It really doubled. I have no idea, and it's getting out of hand. I see many people smalling down from 20 horses to 10 horses, and then they only want to ride the top horses because it's too expensive for the other horses. And what do? Okay, happily for that situation, the number of young horses that are being bred is getting less also, because otherwise we would have had an overproduction. What is that going to mean for us? So it goes hand in hand. But I hope one day that it gets less expensive. But I fear the opposite.
Yeah,
it's a fact. It's very difficult. You see all those nice videos on the social media where people say, "Okay, if I wouldn't have given the first pony to my daughter, I would have had a lot of." For all of us, it's a bacteria. Once you have it, you cannot get out. And you started. It was a happy choice that you started at the FEI. It was not really an emotional decision, but perhaps I could ask you now: do you have the horse bacteria already?
No, I do, and I very much enjoy when I go to events and watch competition. It's amazing sport. It's amazing feeling. I'm lucky enough as well to have access, to the stables, to the training areas, and so on. So you see all it takes and the dedication. Whenever you go, there are at the grooms. We should not forget the grooms as well, because that's where as well they do a lot of work and they take care of the horses. And you see the dedication, the passion, and it's amazing. And that's where I think the FEI and the national, we need to do better, and also we need to do better to show all these images, the behind the scenes, what it takes in the 5 in the morning in the stables, and it's rains, cats and dogs, and as they do the passion. So I think there we are missing a little bit something. I think the beauty is just amazing, and also when you see at events and you can hear your sound and the smell and everything, it's
Yeah, but you remember that at another location, at another moment, I was promoting the welfare of the riders and the welfare of the people of the team. What is still worrying me a little bit is that when I'm in competition, I see the same grooms early in the morning at 6 as 12 at night. And one could ask the question, should not the competitions, the classes not be limited? Because that is really a difficult situation for the
we
group.
have that. So we do have rules as to until how late you can run competition, and also we changed it sounds not big, but the prize giving ceremonies, if it's after 10 p.m. you cannot go mounted, because we also understand that the groom has to go back with the horses, and it's not fair to have them to have like 10 horses being there and waiting for the prize giving to be over the lap of honor and everything, and then it's past midnight and so on. So we have taken that comment from the grooms actually, and I think it's a fair comment. And also,
but also for the stewards, I mean, they make long days for
multi-discipline events. It starts at 7 a.m, you finish at midnight. Official, they just do the work, and they are volunteers.
Yeah, but that's. There are not so many volunteers anymore, huh? It's decreasing as well, huh?
We need to find you.
So, I think that we have dealt the most important topic that we wanted to discuss.
Thank you, Mikael. Thank you for having us here. It was an amazing experience to do this first podcast in our series at the King Hussein building in Lausanne. Thank you very much. You have written history, at least of our podcast.
Yes, thank you very much.
Cheers for the collaboration and that you were.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. So be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on social media for more updates. Thank you very much.